Okay, what role does listening play at Boys and Girls Club for you?
Um, Listening plays a huge role for us, especially when you work from kids with kindergarten up to high school. A lot of it is in the tone of your voice and the tone in their voice. So it creates the idea of like connection between people through empathy. And the only way you can hear that is by listening to them and like active listening. Because if you're not paying attention or at all, you're not going to hear that. Especially when there's so many things going on. Like hearing and listening is completely different. I can hear 5 million things going around me, but like actively listening, like I can actually grasp like how they feel, what I can do for them, and like create an emotional connection with them.
What role does listening play for you at the Boys and Girls Club?
I think listening plays a really important role because I have a lot of people to listen to make the club exactly what it needs to be. So I need to listen to parents to see what they need from the club, the kids to see what they need from the club or what they want the club to be, the staff so that they can do the best job that they need to do, and then also from my supervisors to make sure I'm doing my job appropriately so everything kind of functions. So it's pretty important.
So what role does listening play for you at the Boys and Girls Club?
So for me, I work in the art room, and so if kids don't listen to my directions or if they're not listening to what I have to say, then the projects don't go as planned, and I have a lot of kids in tears if they do not listen. So listening is very essential to me.
What role does listening play for you at the Boys and Girls Club?
I think listening is like a major thing here. Like if the kid feels like you value like what they're saying and like the relationship that you have with them, like it really like helps them like correspond differently in like huge group activities, and like you can really like look at them and like acknowledge them and like know that they're going to be like responsive like when nobody else is. So it's like it really gives you that like relationship with them, and they like will like retain information better and listen better. And so I feel like it goes both ways. Like if they know you listen to them, then they're gonna listen to you.
What role does listening play at the Boys and Girls Club for you?
For me, I feel like listening is super important, especially when I'm working with the kids, because they really want to feel validated and they want to know that they're being heard. So I think it's so important that you listen to the kids even when it's hectic and it's crazy, telling them, hey, let me get 30 seconds and then I'm going to listen to you. I also think listening to, your boss or your fellow staff members, it's a great way to communicate, because communication is so important here. And if you're always talking and you're not listening, you're not helping anybody.
What do you gain when you listen to the children rather than just hear them, and does that make a difference with the positivity of the environment?
I think it definitely makes a huge difference. Like, for instance, even today, like this girl like kept coming up to me and like wanting to tell me stories and like wanting to tell me stuff, and it's just like she knew that I was listening and that I was like responding and being like, wow, that's so cool. Like even if I'm doing like 5 other things, like watching other kids, like just having her know that I'm like listening to her and like responding, it's like she just wanted to keep telling me. So like I feel like really builds like relationship and like trust with a kid. So it's like huge for them, and they like remember you and they like want to talk to you, and I think that is like huge for them because they might not get that other places.
What listening barriers with the children do you face day to day?
I think one of the biggest barriers we have with listening comes with the fact that we have such a large number of kids here. There's so many times when there's multiple kids talking, when we're trying to get the attention of one and it's extremely loud here, or their friends talking so they don't want to listen. There are the kids who also come and are so used to not being listened to, they don't like to listen themselves. It's just become like a custom habit that, I'm sure they also struggle with it at school or somewhere else. I don't want to assume that, but there's just barriers, the habits that they've built up to where they don't want to listen to us a lot of times, and it's working with them to create a trusting relationship to where they will then be able to listen to us.
What are the challenges you face each day?
For me, it's definitely like trying to get their attention and hold their attention. Like, I'm not super good at like yelling, like I lose my voice super easily, and so it's like for me being able to like connect with them and keep their attention, like that's huge. And like especially this summer when I came in new, like trying to build like respect for them and respect for me and just be like an even playing field, like that was huge. And so for me, it's like a daily challenge when I come in and I'm just like subbing. I'm like, okay, I don't know some of these kids' names. I don't know who they are. They don't know who I am. So like getting in here and like talking to them and be like, who are you? What's your name? Like, this is who I am, and just kind of joke around with them like is huge. So I feel like it's as challenging as you make it. You know, if you want to come in and like tackle it head on, then it's going to be so much easier. If you're just going to let those things like kind of slip away, then it's going to be a lot harder.
Cool. Thank you. What listening barriers with the children do you face day to day?
So one of the biggest listening barriers that you can find, like necessarily at the Boys and Girls Club, is when two kids are in a fight and you go to break up the fight. The one kid is telling you what happened, but then the other kid at the same time is trying to tell you. And so that's a big thing when there's two conflicting problems in the same problem. And so you can't listen to both of them at the same time, as well as when you're in charge of about 30 kids and one kid is trying to tell you about everything, but then the other 29 are trying to tell you as well, and that's complicated as well.
Do different age groups listen or respond differently? For example, do the kindergartners listen differently from the middle schoolers?
Yes. All of the kids in every age group, and then in each age group across different skill levels, definitely listen differently. You're not going to approach a kindergartner the way you would even a first grader, because their comprehension level is different. And so kindergartner is going to need a quiet environment in which to listen to what you're saying, whereas a middle schooler, you might be able to just say, hey, stop what you're doing, it's not appropriate, or hey, these are the instructions for the activity, and let them go on with little to no explanation, because they know how to read, they'll get it on their own. You wouldn't do that with younger age groups.
Do different genders listen differently?
Yes. Boys definitely need more explanation and more of a caring explanation than girls need. Girls are quicker to get it, and I honestly don't know if that's a societal thing, girls wanting to impress people in power of authority. I know that's how I was when I was a kid, and you definitely see it here too, where girls, you only have to ask once and they're more willing to listen the first time and do something than boys having to pull them aside and have a longer conversation with them.
What role did listening play for you as you volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club?
Okay, so listening played a really big part as I volunteered here. Previous experience with kids, not so much, because I actually didn't babysit as much as a lot of my friends did in high school. So I really had like the opportunity to learn and grow with this experience. And as I chose to mindfully listen versus just hearing with the kids. Okay, another valuable thing I took away from my experience volunteering here was actually dealing with noise. So the concept of noise, I have a lot of it. You can have it internally and externally. Here, there's a lot of external noise. But something that positive that I took away from that experience was that it actually helped me control my internal noise, and I didn't think a lot about what was going on versus in my own head versus what was going on right in front of me externally. So I thought that was a really, really positive way for me to have a distraction from my own life. It was really cool. What role does listening play for you at the Boys and Girls Club?
Listening played a big role for me here at the Boys and Girls Club. Nonverbal communication was a big thing that affected me. So, you know, I had to like lean in and like shake my head so they know that I was listening, comprehending what they were saying, and also verbal like responses and just like going along with the conversation, because like as mentioned like from other videos from the staff, they might not get that in other places, so it's really important for them to like know that you are listening to them and like being able to hold a conversation with them. I haven't really spent a lot of time with kids, so it was definitely hard at first to differentiate between hearing and listening. So at first I was just hearing them and like hearing all this external noise and just kind of focusing like how my day was going, when really I needed to listen to them and pay attention to like how they were feeling and listen to their stories, and just overall like make sure like their safety is like my #1 priority. And I feel like the only way I could do that was to really listen, not only to them but the people around them, like when people would say like this person's putting this person in danger or this person's like tattling on this person. I really had to listen to the overall conflict and be able to find an approach to fix it, while also being like empathetic to like the other person's feelings, and that was definitely really hard at first, but after like volunteering and like talking to the staff and how to approach those situations, it was definitely more easier. And I definitely learned a lot about listening to different age levels and definitely like how I listen as a person.
Overall, my experience at the Boys and Girls Club was really outstanding, and I think I learned a lot about listening, and I definitely want to continue to work on my listening skills in my everyday life because I see how big of an impact it has on relationships. Another thing I learned by volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club is how much you can learn about someone by just listening to them. A lot of the kids would tell stories about their families or their friends, and just by listening to what they had to say, I was able to understand their background and kind of what they were going through. And a lot of the kids were in really tough situations, and they wouldn't come out and say that, but you can tell by just listening to what they have to say and how they say it, and I thought that that was really interesting. Okay. From the experience at the Boys and Girls Club, I learned how valuable listening is. I think what was most important was the idea of blocking out all the barriers to listening. When I was able to put away my phone and limit all my distractions and actually listen to the stories the kids told me, I feel like it improved our relationship